What if America joined the Axis in World War III? The Axis powers during World War II were Japan, Italy, and Germany. Germany had control over most of continental Europe, Italy dominated the Mediterranean Sea, while Japan held control over East Asia and the Pacific. The Allied powers were led by Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and the United States. On November 1st, 1936, Germany and Italy were both eyeing the European order. They were both on board to destabilize their order, so just 1 week after signing a treaty of friendship, they announced a Rome-Berlin Axis. Then on November 25th, 1936, Germany and Japan signed the Anti-Comintern Pact, directed at the Soviet Union. So Italy joined this pact a year later, and in 1939, Germany and Italy signed the Pact of Steel, creating the Axis alliance, now with military support. And then finally in September 1940, Germany, Italy, and Japan signed the Tripartite Pact, which of course became known as the Axis alliance. So if America had even joined in World War II, it would have been chaotic. The Axis powers would have arguably wiped out the Allies in more ways than one. America and Germany, for starters, would have probably set up a naval blockade around Great Britain. Then the States would have likely invaded us up here in Canada in order to deny the British government a place to go if the Isles became occupied suddenly by Germany. And if America was partnered up with the Axis powers in 1941, they would remain out of the war due to President Roosevelt's isolationist policies, and with Pearl Harbor never being attacked, many believed that Japan would now attack the rest of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. George Friedman, author of the 2009 novel The Next 100 Years, predicts that the United States will remain in power throughout the 21st century. Let's explain. He brings to light the fact that every century has a war, and there's no way the 21st century will be the first without one. George believes that many will attempt to overthrow their power and challenge US dominance. So what could the 2020s look like when it comes to warfare? Well, Friedman predicts that Russia will collapse first. Economic strain and political pressure may cause the federal government of Russia to follow the same path as the Soviet Union. Due to internal social stress and the weakening of Russia, Friedman believes that we are going to see a fragmentation in China. Over the next 10 years, what we may see are three main powers rising up in Eurasia. We would have Turkey, Poland, and Japan. Turkey would be supported by the United States and therefore expand its influence and slowly but surely become a regional power. They would start gaining the same type of power they had during the Ottoman Empire. Their influence would then span over into the Arab world, which he's predicting at that point would too be fragmented. And then lastly, Turkey would expand north into Russia, which has now collapsed, and then other former Soviet countries. The only nation to remain powerful at this point, and outside of Turkish influence, would probably be Israel. Only the thing is, Israel would eventually be forced to join Turkey due to Turkey's military power. Meanwhile, over the next 10 years, Japan would be building up and expanding their economic influence over to coastal China, the Russian Far East, and Pacific Islands. Now at this point, we believe Japan will change their foreign policy, becoming more aggressive while they build up their military assets, until a point where eventually they hold power over East Asia. Poland and its allies would then be a major force as they continue to lead its military alliance, the Polish bloc. Friedman compares this power to the time of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So if Poland is now the top dog in military strength, they would probably expand into what used to be European Russia, and then go toe-to-toe with Turkey in order to gain control over the economic region of the Volga River Valley. But the most interesting bit of information here is that by this time, space programs would be also a main asset for military use. So Japan and Turkey would be developing military capabilities here. So what if the US was part of these powers? I mean, they literally have a space force. So now what? If the United States were allied with these three powers, eventually they would start to get nervous because Japan and Turkey would be expanding. This would threaten the United States, plus the growth of Turkish and Japanese naval power, plus space powers? That's a lot of power. The states would start to get sketched out, to say the least. With Turkey and Japan having similar interests, they would ideally form an alliance to hopefully overwhelm the US, so the US would be allied with the British bloc, the UK, a now restabilized China, India, and a now reunified Korea. And George predicts that by the time the 40s end up rolling around, there would be massive global tensions between all these alliances. So, cut to 2050, we've now established both sides hypothetically, but where would Germany and France fit in with all this? Well, they would join the war late, and most likely they would be on the side of Japan and Turkey. In this book, The Next 100 Years, it's predicted that the war could also start with an attack from Turkey and Japan. They may sneak up and hit the United States and its allies. George even goes so far as to predict the exact day and time this war will hypothetically begin. He says it would take the United States completely off guard, somewhere like 5 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day in 2050. After this sneak attack, the Turkish-Japanese alliance will likely take down most of the United States military capabilities. Now the states will then have one of two choices. One, either accept the Turkish-Japanese alliance and side with them as an allied power, or two, reject them and immediately go right to war. The United States taking a big hit like that right off the bat and seemingly out of nowhere, they would need to rebuild their military. But again, this is 30 years into the future. We have no idea what kind of tech will exist and furthermore be used in military fashion. I mean, 30 years ago from now, we got our very first website. In 1992, we figured out how to send a text message. Now look at us. We can listen to albums, stream podcasts, call our friends, and monitor our health, all with an Apple Watch. We can call somebody with a watch. That's insane. Technology is moving so fast, so many believe that the States and its allies would overthrow the Turkish-Japanese powers after pioneering these new military technologies. So what weapons could we see in this future world war? What kind of damage are we expecting here? Well, we're thinking long-range hypersonic aircraft would be the primary force in the skies, but like I mentioned earlier, control over space, literal space, will play a major role. Believe it or not, the death toll predicted over the span of this 3-year future war would be only around 50,000, because we're expecting a limited amount of collateral damage this time around. We're not dropping nukes and then acting surprised when it's way bigger and deadlier than we thought. We'll probably be using some type of laser beam realistically. Right now, American astronauts are gearing up to set up camp near the moon's south pole. It's already happening. The area with extreme light, extreme darkness, and frozen water could power NASA's Artemis lunar base. This is intended for deep space exploration right now, but if another world war started to pop off on Earth, I'm sure they would start thinking about using the moon as a base of operations. Just a few days ago, for example, the United States Space Force revealed their uniform, and no, there's sadly no capes. The internet's responding to these fashionable uniforms, and many have noted the similarities between their design and Captain Kirk's from Star Trek, or even Battlestar Galactica. There's a theme going on here. Space Force Deputy Chief of Strategy modeled the new uniform with women in mind, which is great because usually the military would make uniforms for men and then later on adapt them for women. So we're growing and we're expanding. Not bad. So not only will the US control the moon and then watch down over us with their big laser beams, but they'll also look great while they do it. What about you guys? Where do you think the United States will be during World War III? Do you think it'll be centered around space technology with moon military factions? Will we take the battle to the cosmos like some Star Wars saga? Or do you think we're just gonna keep blowing up the Earth over and over and over again with nukes until the end of time? Sound off in the comments section down below. I've been your host Taylor McWaters, and we'll see you next time on Life's Biggest Questions. Germany and Japan signed the anti-Comintern. Comintern? Yeah, we'll say that. Japan all signed the tripartite. Tripartite? The tripartite. No, that sounds like a Transformers. Tripartite. Tripartite. Yeah, that sounds like a thing.